We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the MAC Sports Connection podcast, where Alex hosts all things MAC, all things football, all things sports, right here, MAC Sports Connection, baby. The Mid-American Conference best, bringing it only the greats, MAC, to everyone.
Welcome back, everybody, to the MAC Sports Connection podcast, part of the Varsity Podcast Network, presented by Lairfield. I'm your host, Alex, and for the first time in over a year, we have a new official co-host, and I'm pleased to welcome to the show for the first time as an official co-host, Graham Giles. Graham, welcome back, officially part of the team. Glad to have you.
Yeah, love being here. I don't love hearing that I wasn't officially part of the team before, but nice to take on that official co-host spot.
Well, you're always part of the team in our hearts and in our
You heard it here first. Those all those baseball rundowns I did last year didn't count. That's fun to know. Anyway, boss man, we're
wow.
Now that we're doing our first official podcast together, where are we going first?
Well, we got a couple things to kind of hit on this week. First and foremost, we can just kind of run down bowl games. The MAC finished with their best win total in bowl game history, sitting at 5-2. And I know a lot of people are going to look at that and say, that's not really that impressive. 5-2, five wins isn't great. When you look at the history of how college football has played out, as recent as 2000, MAC schools were getting one, maybe two bowl game bids. So this, I mean, for them to go 5-2, yeah, it doesn't sound impressive when you see the Big Ten or the SEC get, 19 bowl bids. It's impressive when you know the history of just how many bids the MAC gets and how often they get those bids. So it's, as we've seen that shift in landscape, it's nice to see that the MAC had a great showing in the 2024 postseason.
Well, yeah, and we make this argument as MAC sports fans that the MAC doesn't get its due very often, and then we have opportunities to play other conferences, like in these bowl games. We have an opportunity to show what the MAC is and what it stands for, and stepping up at 5-2, and not just 5-2, but 5-2, and those two losses are one-score losses. This is the kind of showing that says the MAC is a real conference to contend with. At large and in the larger landscape of college football.
Yeah, I agree with you. And kind of touching on those losses, very impressed with what Harold Fannin did. In their bowl game loss, they lost the 68 Ventures Bowl to Arkansas State. I really like Harold Fannin. I think he's going to be a great NFL tight end. But he kept them in this game for most of it. Bowling Green lost 38-31, and he was really the big bright star in that game. And numbers don't lie. Harold Fannin is the best tight end in college football this year.
He has been incredible. I got to see him at that Bowling Green Toledo game in person, and that even wasn't one of his better games this year, but he was still incredible in that one. Certainly my top tight end in the country, and really I think he's going to be great in the NFL. We've had this kind of history recently of great tight ends going from college to the NFL and being great almost immediately in the NFL. And it would surprise me if Harold Fannin was any different from that. Bowling Green passed for almost 400 yards in this game. It was unfortunately a loss, but I think this is one of the Mac's better showings this bowl season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, obviously, over 200 of those yards went to Harold Fannin, but I mean, they put the ball around to a couple different people. 6 different guys caught the ball in this game. BG looked solid for most of it. It looked like they were playing a little bit of catch up for most of this game, but I mean, they were right there up until the very end. So hats off to BG. Yeah, unfortunately, it does result in a loss. Arkansas State, no slouch out of the Sun Belt. They did a great job of game planning and preparing, but did not prepare to slow down Harold Fannin, or didn't realize just how good he actually was. But Arkansas State, of course, wins that one 38-31. Western Michigan lost to South Alabama in the Salute to Veterans Bowl 30-23. Again, just, another one-score game for the conference. And, honestly, I'll take it. Western Michigan, who's been down the last couple of years, have missed the last couple bowl games, finally getting back into the postseason, and didn't have a terrible showing.
Yeah, I mean it's a one-score game, and it's hard to say that this is a win for the conference. So, there are some games where we kind of treat them that way. A one-score loss kind of feels like a win for a MAC team. This is not one of those. This is the South Alabama team that Western Michigan should have beaten. They do get the opportunity to kick off bowl season, that's fun for a MAC team to do. But yeah, I mean, this one hurts a little bit, especially after we talked about Western Michigan being such a good team at the start of the season. They really stumbled in the back half, and then to end it with a bowl loss like this one, that seems sad for the Broncos season.
Plenty to build on, though. 6-7 is how they finished the year. Again, a far cry from the 3-9 seasons they just had not too long ago. So they're moving the right direction. And yeah, I'm excited to see where Western goes after this. But we did have a couple really great bowl wins. The MAC champion Ohio Bobcats getting it done in the Cure Bowl. Finished 11-3 for the third straight season that this program has finished with 10 wins. Is after you lose your head coach, the guys who did enter the transfer portal, they decided to stick around and go play this bowl game. They didn't even declare for the portal pre-bowl game, which frankly, in this day and age, is extremely rare. They go out, they get it done, they close it out, put up a monster effort in the first half. They were up 27-7, I believe, at half, and then just relied on the defense. Got a little close there at the end. Relied on the defense to close it out. Finished 30-27 over Jacksonville State, the conference champions of Conference USA, a conference that many people often compare the Mid-American Conference to. In terms of hierarchy, and well, this round goes to the MAC.
There you go. And frankly, we saw Tim Albin come in and lead this Bobcats team, and we saw very little turnover there, right? Tim Albin's teams have been winning now for 3 years and looking excellent. And I think if you don't know the history of the Bobcats, you might think, or at least the recent history, you might think that losing a head coach just before a bowl game puts you kind of behind the 8 ball. But this is a team who won the MAC championship, and just like we expected, you and I had this conversation, just like we expected, these Bobcats were super consistent. They looked ready to play. And I think you're right. It speaks a lot that these players who knew, we had to know they were going to declare to transfer. They hold off on that until after the bowl game, because that's the kind of program that these Ohio Bobcats are. Certainly sad to see Tim Albin leave the MAC, but has built and helped maintain a great program in these Ohio Bobcats.
For sure. And again, another great victory over Jacksonville State. And you're right, Tim Albin's done an unbelievable job there. If he ever returns to Athens, I don't think he ever has to buy a beer in Athens after winning their first title in 56 years. But yeah, great job by Tim Albin and his staff. Many who are still actually at Ohio, guys who did not continue to jump with Tim Albin. So really looking forward to see how they kind of build on that and continue to build on the success. Moving on, we've got Northern Illinois, Fresno State. This one was a fun one. This is a double overtime game. And it won't be the only overtime game we talk about, but Northern Illinois comes out victorious over the Mountain West, and we'll get to that in a minute. 28-20. I did not think this Northern Illinois offense could get it done. Ethan Hampton, not sticking around. I really thought they were going to struggle in that first half. They struggled. But they turned it on in the second half, shut out Fresno State in the final 2 quarters before overtime, and big win for Thomas Hammock and the Northern Illinois Huskies.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we know Northern Illinois started this year with that big victory over Notre Dame and kind of lulled in the middle, but towards the end of the season, Northern Illinois steps back up. The Huskies start winning some games. They put in a little bit of a push for the MAC championship game. We know, of course, they didn't make it there, but did a good job. And then we have this thriller, this double overtime victory over Fresno State to cap the season off. It's a season that could have been a very exciting season for Northern Illinois if they had hung on after that Notre Dame win. And following that, looked like it was going to be a big disappointment. I think this brings it back into the realm of a successful season, and one that I think Thomas Hammock can be proud of for this Husky team.
Yeah, I think so. And Coach Hammock's done a great job since he's been there. They've seen a lot of ups and downs. You've had some highs, you've had some lows, you've had some over seasons, specifically the COVID year, but this is a program that's well established. Joe Novak, Rod Carey. I mean, people know these names, right? These are iconic names in Northern Illinois coaching hierarchy, and Thomas Hammock is slowly starting to etch his name into that. In fact, I think he pretty much firmly cemented it with that win over Notre Dame. But this is a great win, especially over a soon-to-be departing Mountain West program who had heading to the Pac-12, and a soon-to-be entering the Mountain West program in Northern Illinois. We'll get to that in a minute. But again, great win. And that's, like I said, that's not the only overtime game we're going to be talking about. In fact, we have a new record holder in postseason overtime games. And that now belongs to the Toledo Rockets in their 6th overtime win against Pittsburgh. What a game.
This was a thriller of a game, and it was the thriller of bowl season. I saw ESPN has kind of an excitement index. Did you see that graph out there? And this game ranks right at the top of that graph. I don't think it's number one, but it is close to that number one spot, if it's not number one, on their excitement index, which takes into account the swings and the various probability of a team winning throughout the game. This one had a couple of false start celebrations of victory in it as well, with Toledo rushing the field a little bit too early. It's really a game where everything went back and forth, not just the score and not just the flow of the game between these two teams, but Tucker Gleason looked awful at parts and great at others. He ends up in overtime locking in and connecting on so many plays right in a row. When we're talking about the way this overtime is structured, my opinions aside on how stupid it is, I think vary. But when we get into these 2-point conversions, any misstep is the difference between victory and defeat, and we saw that happen with Pittsburgh in their last possession. And Tucker Gleason looks great throughout it, with Junior Vandeross there to assist, and really that's what it comes down to in this game. Is it's Tucker Gleason and it's the Toledo receivers, the entire group, led by Vandeross in the day, but really this entire group of Toledo receivers just crushed it, especially when it came time for these overtimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Tucker Gleason, when you look at his completion percentage, you're like, yeah, it's not great. 52% completion percentage. But like you said, he threw for over 300 yards, 336 yards in this game. He threw the ball 50 times in this contest. That's a lot to ask of any quarterback, especially a college quarterback. But he came out and he kept slinging, he kept trying. Pittsburgh, of course, owned the ground. Pittsburgh rushed for a combined 301 yards. But for me, I think, if I had to pick like an MVP squad here, I'd say it goes to the defense. Darius Alexander, Braden Alls both had pick sixes for a combined 100 yards. Jaden Dotton had another interception. And the defense, when it looked like the Toledo offense couldn't get it going, the defense stepped up, made a great play. Toledo was down a couple of scores going into the fourth quarter. Defense got them back into it and set them up for a 6 overtime victory.
Yeah, and this is we often talk about games as a tale of two halves. This one, not so much a tale of two halves as a tale of one half. It's the first half of this game, not that exciting. I think Toledo went in. Was this game tied at halftime? It was close to.
It was close to. I think Toledo did have a slight lead. I think, it was 20-12 at half.
20-12 at halftime. And so Toledo goes in with a lead. Then we watch the second half as Pittsburgh comes out and they say, like, we're Pittsburgh. We should be winning over the Toledo Rockets. But it comes out of the fourth quarter. And you're right, those pick sixes, those turnovers on behalf of Toledo and the defense really turn this one around. And then the offense locking in overtime. And of course, the one big defensive stop in overtime seals the deal and allows the Rockets to walk out of here after 6 overtimes.
Hats off to Jason Candle and his squad. There's the second time that that Toledo has knocked off 2 Power 4 opponents in the same season. Last time coming back in 2015, Toledo knocked off Iowa State and then ranked Arkansas under the last year of Matt Campbell. But we've got a couple more bowl games here. We got Miami versus Colorado State in the Snoop Dogg Gin and Juice Arizona Bowl.
Yeah, right.
Talk about a mouthful. And aside from the Pop-Tarts Bowl, the presentation around this one was quite the spectacle.
It was. I mean, just the fact that
what is happening?
Snoop Dogg's involvement across the whole thing made it exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Now I am partial to the Mayo Bowl. I like a coach getting covered in mayo, but this one is up there as well.
I don't know. Seeing Chuck Martin get chained up by Snoop Dogg was pretty special. Miami ran away with this one. I mean, it was a close game in the first half. It was 9-3 at halftime, but then Miami just blew the doors wide open in the second half. And Kevin Davis, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, this offense started clicking really, really well in the second half. I mean, 34 second half points.
Well, can we talk about Kevin Davis, senior?
What a stud
for this Miami team. He's played almost not at all this year.
Yeah,
he's been a change of pace back, a third on the depth chart kind of back for this Miami team. He saw an opportunity in a bowl game. He took it, and a big reason why Miami came out on top.
Yeah, no, he was. I'd say arguably the biggest reason, aside from the defense. Of course, the defense played incredible football, only allowing 14 points in the second half, but he looked excellent in every aspect. Anytime he touched the ball, I mean, he averaged, I was looking at it, he was averaging like 12 yards a carry every time he touched the ball.
Yeah,
he was picking up a first down.
And in part, that's because of the long run,
the long
there.
touchdown, sure.
But yeah, this is incredible. This is Kevin Davis puts up 148 yards on the ground. You want to guess how many yards he had on the season as a whole?
I'm gonna guess 200.
He had 331 yards for the entire season, 148 of them coming in this bowl game. So almost half of his season yards just in this one game.
Incredible.
What a great way for a senior to contribute to a team than to come out and say, I know I haven't gotten the playing time and I haven't gotten the opportunities all year, but now that I have them, let's make something happen.
Absolutely. And he certainly did. Of course, one of the biggest, I think he ended up winning MVP for this game, if I remember correctly. And if he didn't, I'd be very, very shocked. But yeah, I mean, the presentation, you and I've talked about when it was the Barstool Arizona Bowl, just how awful the presentation was back when Barstool was doing it, and how they were live betting in the broadcast booth and talking about their live. Like, this was a much better presentation. I think the fans enjoyed it. I think the athletes enjoyed it. The coaches enjoyed it. And it was very clear Snoop Dogg enjoyed it. So I hope that he stays kind of the partner title sponsor of this for many years to come, because this was incredibly enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, between Snoop's participation at the Olympics as their kind of color commentator, man on the street, and this bowl game, Snoop has kind of taken over sports media, and I'm here for it. I'm here for the Snoop Dogg Plus package that I'm going to have to buy to watch all of his sports broadcasts.
I saw something on Twitter the other day where it said Snoop Dogg's out here just doing like real life Grand Theft Auto and just completing side missions. And that's kind of what it feels like. Last bowl game here, we've got Buffalo over Liberty. Liberty, who prior to this season, the last time they lost was the Oregon game, where they were they were the Group of 5 representative for the New Year's Six. Prior to that, their last loss came at the hands of the Toledo Rockets. So up until this season, Liberty was kind of the talk of the Group of 5. Now you get Buffalo, who was decimated by Liberty a year ago. And I want to be clear, it's really hard to take away a lot from bowl games with opt-outs and, all these different things. Buffalo looked really good in this game.
Buffalo looked great in this game. We kind of got to shout out Red Murdoch, who had a pick six in this one, and still an incredible linebacker, as well as Sean Dolak, who led the team in tackles this year, led the entire FBS in tackles this year. But those two linebackers once again showed out, and in addition, let's talk about Upton Belafont, who kicked 12 points for Buffalo in this one.
Yeah.
So just including a 52-yard field goal. This is I think a lot of times we forget how important kickers can be for teams. But this one, Buffalo did not let us forget how important kickers are. We have 12 points from the Buffalo kicker, and 12 points on field goals.
Yeah. 14 on the day.
He also hits a couple of extra points, including an extra point following that pick six. So we're talking about 14 points. 6 of them go to the defense, 14 to the kicker. So we're talking about 6 points for the offense on the day for this one, which is fun to note.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is it was fun seeing these two teams duke it out in the Bahamas Bowl. Liberty will be fine. They're looking for a lot of new players, whatever. They scored that late touchdown to kind of make it a little bit interesting, but only interesting enough in the fact that they didn't get shut out. Buffalo runs away with this one. Again, a great postseason for the Mid-American Conference. 2 victories over the Mountain West, a victory over a Power 4, and then a couple victories over Conference USA. I can't be too upset about it.
Yeah, you love to see it. And, this specifically this Buffalo game, Buffalo entered this game 0-3 all time against Liberty. So to break that streak and get your first victory over a Liberty team who has done well recently, as you mentioned, that's a big win for the MAC as well.
Absolutely. We're going to talk Northern Illinois moving to the Mountain West. But before we get to that, I want to talk to you guys about the Varsity Podcast app and how it is available for free in the App Store, Apple Play or Apple App Store, Google Play, wherever you can find your mobile apps. Download the Varsity app presented by Lairfield. It's available really, really just perfect for on the go. And my favorite thing about it is that you can listen to your favorite podcast, but more importantly, you can listen to your favorite audio broadcast. I'm a big fan of some of these Mac voices, guys like Mick Tidrow and Adam Jaxa, just phenomenal. Marty Bannister down at Ohio. These guys are great at what they do, have done a phenomenal job covering their teams. You guys can listen to all of those guys and more for free. Listen to your favorite college commentators You can sync it up with your TV if you're watching the game, but you don't want to hear the ESPN broadcast, which frankly, I get. You want to listen to your local guy, the guy who knows your team in and out. You can sync this audio broadcast up with your television, watch the game, and listen as if you're there in person. And it's a great app. You can download it today, like I said, for free. Plenty of great calls. You can save your favorite schools, save your favorite sports, and again, save your favorite podcast. You want to listen to this. You want to listen to the Group of Five guys. You want to listen to the Sickos Committee. All those podcasts and more are available. Download it today. It's free in the App Store. It's well worth it. It's been one of my favorite apps. I listen to it all postseason. I listened to it a lot during the regular season. When it came to the MAC postseason and I had to be on the go, I had the Varsity app open, listening to those games. Go check it out today, guys. Moving into the big news that is surrounding the Mid-American Conference. And the timeline on this has been insane. We went from the Mountain West was interested in Northern Illinois back in October. Then in November, Brett McMurphy shares out, never mind, just kidding, interest is waning, it's not happening. Then December comes, and we get Christmas, and Northern Illinois, to their fans, it feels like it's Christmas. The announcement that they have been offered and are set to officially formally accept the offer to join the Mountain West effective 2026, July 1st, 2026. So one more year in the Mid-American Conference. And then head west, young man. Northern Illinois is going to be part of the Mountain West Conference.
Yeah.
Insane.
So that's officially, the university has accepted the offer. What we're waiting on is their board approval. And the reason for that is that it's going to cost NIU $2 million to join the Mountain West. And any financial obligation of over $500,000 requires board of trustees approval. So we'll hear about that. We're recording this on Monday night. Tuesday afternoon, 1:30 is when this board of trustees meeting is taking place, and we'll have a result of that. There's no reason this shouldn't get approved by the board of trustees. It's as we said, it's already been accepted by the university.
Mm-hmm.
It's an invitation from the Mountain West, so both parties have already agreed to this. This is just going to be a formal vote by the board of trustees, and I can't imagine that they would vote against this.
No, it's interesting. You mentioned the $2 million entry fee for Northern Illinois. I was doing a little bit of digging. It looks like there is precedent that Northern Illinois is going to have to pay exit fees. Looking at some of the other teams that have left the Mid-American Conference. So I'm really curious as to why this hasn't been brought up a bunch yet. This information comes from Big Ten Information College Football Fan on Twitter, which I know sounds like an incredibly unreliable source. And I recognize that, but it looks like this is a guy who's gotten a lot of information right on a lot of potential moves, media deals, things like that. He's gotten a lot of information right. So I do trust this source, but he's saying it's going to cost roughly $4 million for NIU to exit the MAC. That includes exit fee and other stuff. So I'm not wondering if $2 million of that is the new entry fee, or if he's saying that it's going to be $4 million just for their departure. When I did some digging, because I shared this out on Twitter, guys, if you don't follow the podcast, you can follow it on the MSC podcast on Twitter. I did share out some information the other day about exit fees. Temple, when they left back in the early 2010s, they had a $6 million exit fee. They didn't make the request to leave known with 2+ years. So there was a penalty on top of their actual exit fee. Looks like Marshall paid $400,000 an exit fee, according to the Toledo Blade back in 2003. UMass, it looks like without a 2-year notice, their exit fee was $2.5 million when they left the first time, and that was just when they were a football only member. So and it seems like UCF paid about a $500,000 fee to leave as a football only member. So there is some precedent here that Northern Illinois is going to have to pay some sort of exit fee.
And based on the numbers you just had there, $4 million sounds right to me. That sounds like it's in the right range. Now, of course, this is a football only move for Northern Illinois. They are taking their football program and going to the Mountain West. The other question here is what happens to Northern Illinois' Olympic sports. It's hard to imagine the MAC would say it's okay to keep these other sports in the MAC and not have football there. So I'm not sure that that's likely. It seems like folks around Northern Illinois would love to target the Missouri Valley, the Ohio Valley, or the Horizon League as a landing spot for those Olympic sports. With the idea being, and one thing that you had brought up when we were originally talking about this Mountain West move for Northern Illinois, and also Toledo was in talks about maybe they would move. Seems like the Toledo part of that was way more rumors than the NIU talk about it. But when we talked about it, one of the things you had brought up was this: even if the Mountain West brings in more revenue, which they do. In terms of TV deals and things like that. But even if the Mountain West does bring in more revenue, just travel costs alone, facilitating these travel costs across the country is going to be expensive. So having the Olympic sports join the Missouri Valley or the Ohio Valley or the Horizon League might help to offset some of those costs. Where you're talking about NIU traveling to the Mountain West, going to Nevada and Hawaii and Colorado and New Mexico and Wyoming and all these fun plane trips for the football team. Maybe if the Olympic sports stay a little bit closer to home, that could offset some of those costs.
So I think that's the big argument, right? There's talk about the Horizon League kind of seems to be the one that's kind of emerged as the favorite. If I'm being really honest, any of these leagues that take a lot of their Olympic sports, and I say this with all the love in the world for NIU, any of these leagues that take any of their Olympic sports are going to see a decrease in their conference RPI or their net rating, which is used for a lot of basketball, things like that. Northern Illinois has put so much emphasis on football, which in fairness, football's been kind of their bread and butter, the Orange Bowl and, the 5 MAC championships since 2011. So I get it. I do. But Northern Illinois basketball sits at 325 in net rating, which is like 5th from the bottom of college basketball. And that's for the men's side. A bunch of their other Olympic sports sit incredibly low, almost all of them dead last in the Mid-American Conference. So it's kind of a gamble. I mean, that's why I don't think the Missouri Valley is going to work out. Missouri Valley is a really quality mid-major conference. So I think, Horizon League, the Summit, or the Ohio Valley are the most likely landing spots, all of who do a great job. But, I saw somebody arguing online the other day about, this gives Northern Illinois a chance to be more competitive in a different league. You're dead last in one of the worst basketball leagues in the country. I don't know where you're going to be more competitive all of a sudden in a slightly better league, or the Summit, who is below the MAC. You might be middle of the pack there, but I don't buy that argument as to why fans are excited about it. Fans are excited about the football move. Let's call it what it is. Fans are excited about the idea of traveling to Hawaii every other year, traveling out to Reno, Nevada, traveling out to San Jose, out to California, so those destinations, frankly, are far more appealing than Ypsilanti, Michigan. I get that. I truly get that. Right. But when you look at numbers, Northern Illinois, in terms of football expenses, ranked 130th. So third from last in FBS football, in terms of expenses and what they kind of brought in. That's everybody else that they're now going to be competing with sat at 107th or higher. So those teams are already doing way more with expenses. Northern Illinois needs the cash right now. I'm not going to sit here and belabor Northern Illinois, but I think it's very interesting when you look at the cost. There's a great video on YouTube, seemingly very much in defense of this Northern Illinois move on why it's a good move. And the guy did a lot of cost breakdown. He suggested that about $750,000 NIU's charter flight cost for 4 MAC games. This is where some of the figures are off. Northern Illinois doesn't charter 4 MAC flights. At best, they charter a flight to Buffalo. But from everything I've been seeing and been told, they bus to every other MAC game. So really, you're looking at one flight. But at about $187,000 for that flight. When you add in the Mountain West cost and you add in all of that, fans don't realize how expensive it is to fly to Hawaii. I'm sure the university is aware. The university's been crunching these numbers. I'm not telling Sean Frazier, the athletic director, anything new with this episode. I know that they're looking at the numbers. I'm worried that the fans see that the Mountain West is guaranteeing $3.5 million minimum for all members, all full members. The fans see the $3.5 million and they're like, this is going to be way better. Northern Illinois might get 75% of that as a football only member. That's so you're already going to get a little bit less money than you're actually expecting if you're a fan. The MAC media deal expires in 2027 and is going to be renegotiated. The deal that's been in place since 2011. These deal that was a deal that was in place before Northern Illinois went to the Orange Bowl. So there was value in the MAC during that run. There's just a lot of different things that I think that are coming into play that it just feels like, as we've talked about before, college football and it's what it's doing. It's a money grabbing thing now where everybody needs to get as much money as possible just so they can feel like they're staying relevant.
Well, and that's not really the reason that they need more money to feel like they're staying relevant. They need more money to stay relevant. That's the point. If you're not winning ball games, you're not a relevant football program. And if you're not a relevant football program, there's an argument you want to drop football. And no fan wants to see that, right? If we were saying, Alex, here's the situation. Northern Illinois can stay in the MAC. And eventually they're going to lose their football program, or they can move to the Mountain West and keep the program. You would immediately say, move to the Mountain West, keep that football program. Let's keep these fans happy. You talk to me how much you like Coach Hammock. You think he would like to see that program go away? And that's what this is. That's what these moves are all about. Let's keep the program alive. Let's keep the program relevant. Let's make this into a big time sort of football program. The university, in their proposal to the board of trustees, mentions that they believe that the cost to support the transition to the Mountain West, this includes travel, staffing, rebranding, and exit fees. So that this includes that $4 million, or the potential $4 million we talked about earlier. They think it's going to be primarily offset by increased revenues from media rights, revenue distributions from the Mountain West, like you were talking about, guarantees from the conference, as well as anticipated enhancements in revenue from ticket sales and donations. So when we talk about ticket sales, we're talking about when we can bring in higher profile opponents, because they're now conference opponents. They're going to have to travel to Northern Illinois as well. When we can bring in those higher profile opponents, we can sell more tickets that way. The other thing is, when we're playing more high profile opponents, and when we're seen in more more places across the country, we're seen in Hawaii, we get to play in that late night game that everybody's watching. When we do that, the revenue will come in the form of donations as well. As more people see us, the higher likelihood it is that those people will make donations. Dave Hale of ESPN, staff writer for them, wrote a piece, I think it came out last week, talking about the state of the group of five when it comes to college football, and really highlighting a lot of the haves and have-nots when it comes to college football. But in it, he talks to Thomas Hammock, one of the guys who gets interviewed for this article. He talks to him, and they're talking about this idea that when it comes to modern college football, especially post NIL, and really now with the this new deal in the House that's come down, this House settlement. Mm-hmm. We're having to pay players, and whether we're paying them directly as this House settlement suggests we might be able to, or whether it's coming from these NIL deals, programs need more and more money. And so they talked to Hammock. He said it's nearly impossible to fully engage with his team because of the fundraising demands. He said what he does, he sets out his time in a year, and he goes from January to July. I'm on the fundraising trail. I don't coach this team. I'm out there asking for donations, meeting with boosters, doing things to raise money for this team. Post July, that's when he becomes a coach. And so that's the thing you're talking about. He focuses almost all of his energy just on raising money between January all the way through June. That's incredible. I mean, I wonder if people realize how much time Group of Five coaches spend just asking boosters for money. They're going out there meeting with boosters, trying to solicit donations, trying to set up these NIL collectives, everything you can in order to retain players. Hammock is one of these people who talks about this idea that development and growth, and especially relationship building, whether it's between players or between other coaches, but especially with these players, that's what he recruits on, is this idea that, you know, we're going to build a relationship as player and coach, and you're going, as a player, you're going to see growth and you're going to see development at this program. But even when coaches talk about that, again, this is from the David Hale piece. Coaches are talking about, we build these great relationships with people, and then I have to sit down with my starting quarterback. This is not a Northern Illinois part, but to sit down with my starting quarterback and listen to him say, like, look, coach, I love you, but I can't stay here. You know, I had a great year this year, but I'm moving to the next level and the next level not being the NFL, the next level being a Power 5 program, Power 4 rather, a Power 4 program, just in order to make a little bit of money. And as a coach who cares about a young man's future, how are you going to say you can't make that move? And at the same time, it's heartbreaking. When you founded your program on this idea that relationships matter, and you've built such a strong relationship with these players, it breaks your heart to watch them to go to another program. And so I do. I mean, I think the state of college football as it is, there's a demand for money. If you want to play football, if you want to coach football as you want to, if you want your program to have an identity that's shaped by you rather than by the landscape and by other people, you almost have to move into the Power 4. Northern Illinois is making a slight move in that direction. They're saying maybe we can make the Group of Five work, but we need to go to a league that allows us to have more of this control, allows us to have access to more of this revenue that's surrounding the sport right now. Because even just post introduction of NIL, schools have talked about the cost to retain a player on their team. They've doubled or tripled in just the last year. And we're talking about the way this House settlement is coming down. That money might even be more. We might need more and more money, exponential increase in revenue for these teams in order to keep their guys. The other thing that happens with this House settlement is we're increasing scholarships. Teams are getting an additional 20 scholarships. So now that's up to a university how many of those scholarships they use. But we know the top programs are going to use all of them. Why wouldn't you? So not only are these top teams making more money, not only do these top teams represent an opportunity for players to make more money, but they now have more spots. And with unlimited transfers, why wouldn't you bring in everybody who did well from these Group of Five teams? I saw another. I loved this article. Again, David Hale, State of the Group of Five, is the article on ESPN. But one of the things they talked about there was of the players who transferred from Group of Five schools to Power Conference programs. 273 players total transferred from Group of Five to Power Conference programs. That's averaging more than 4 players per program. And unlike at the Power 5 or Power 4 level, where most of these transfers are transferring because of playing time, most of these 273 players who transferred are transferring because they did great. So they're transferring to a program where they get the opportunity to now make a little money, get a little more notoriety. 88 of the players who left Group of Five schools, that's a third of that, all had been named to all conference teams. So a third of the players transferring from Group of 5 schools are all conference players going to Power 4 schools, and that's the kind of talent suck that happens with the way the system is designed. I think this move to the Mountain West helps NIU combat some of that.
I think I don't fully disagree with that. I do think that what concerns me is with this move for NIU, like, the idea that this is going to be a step up, and financially perhaps it is. But when you look at who they're bringing in for football and who they retain, I mean, there's real talk that they're going to lose UNLV, who really I think would probably be the strongest remaining program in the current Mountain West, after the departure of Boise, Colorado State, Fresno State. I think once you lose UNLV, that really hurts the conference. And the conference just added UC Davis, who, by the way, is an FCS program, who they're talking about helping to make the transition to FBS. I'm sorry. I feel like for me, I would rather a little bit more stability with the enemy than the enemies you don't. And to me, it says a lot about Northern Illinois. And again, if Northern Illinois truly feels like this is the best move for them, I support it. When I reported that it wasn't happening, I was going off of really solid information. When it came out that it was happening, new information showed up during that time. I operated on the information, so I own that I got this one wrong. And I'm not going to throw my sources under the bus because they've gotten everything else right. I'm one slip up, and in fairness, they did say the biggest hiccup could be the money piece. Sounds like the money piece got figured out. So I'm not gonna discredit anything they said. But yeah, to say all that, I think it's very important. You got to look at other factors, and I know Northern Illinois has. You got to look at the other factors. A flight to UMass is still closer than a flight to Air Force. A flight to Buffalo is closer than anything you're going to fly for the Mountain West. Yes, Kent State is not good at football. That's very well established. But you're going to have opponents. You're going to have UC Davis, who eventually gets elevated to FBS. They're not going to jump up and be like some juggernaut. They don't even win titles down at the FCS level. Now they've been quality. They've been in the playoffs. I believe they were in the quarterfinals this year of the FCS playoffs. But to me, it just feels like the Mountain West is grasping at straws to stay alive when, frankly, and people talked about this for a while, you should have just merged with the remaining two Pac-12 teams. You created a stronger conference that way with both of them. Then we're not doing all this shuffling. The other part of this is I think there's a little bit of an identity crisis. All of these other conferences we've talked about for Northern Illinois for their Olympic sports, none of them sponsor wrestling. None of them sponsor the gymnastics. So now Northern Illinois goes from being all in one conference to now you're likely going to cut a program or two. But you're now looking at being in 3 different conferences. And I'm willing to bet the MAC is not going to let you keep gymnastics and wrestling in the MAC, at least right now, with your departure. I don't see it happening. So you're going to be looking to try to join, I don't know, maybe the Big 12 as an affiliate, if they'll have you. But I don't, or, maybe you're going to have to find a conference further away, maybe the Atlantic 10. You're going to have to find something else. And then that travel cost jumps back up because now you have to fund these two programs and send them out to further away things. So to me, a lot of it doesn't add up.
Well, I think the money piece must add up because I know what you're saying. I hear what you're saying about the travel costs, and I hear what you're saying about them being an issue, and certainly they are. But if the monetary thing didn't add up, Northern Illinois wouldn't be making this move. They're not. This isn't a vanity move, and I know that seems like the way that you're trying to frame it. But that's not what this is. This is not a vanity move on the behalf of Northern Illinois. They have a history in the Mid-American Conference, and it would be great if that conference supported what Northern Illinois is trying to do with their football team. But they're looking out and saying, we want to return to the days of the Orange Bowl and of Jordan Lynch. And in order to do that in today's college football landscape, what you need to do is be in a conference where you can make more money. And right now, it looks like the Mountain West is making moves. They invited in those last two members of the Pac-12, and of course, what ended up happening is it bit them. But by doing that, you increase the profile of the conference. Boise State, even though they're not going to be a member of the conference at the same time as Northern Illinois is, Boise State increased the profile of this conference, not just this year, but in past years. And so this Mountain West Conference is a conference that has a higher profile, and a higher profile conference means more access to dollars for Northern Illinois. I mean, let me talk about the teams who are anticipated to be in the Mountain West in 2026 when Northern Illinois officially joins. We're looking at Air Force. We're looking at Hawaii. We're looking at Nevada. We're looking at New Mexico. Of course, Northern Illinois, San Jose State. I already said Nevada, UNLV,
and UTEP, and Wyoming.
UTEP and Wyoming are the teams there. So these are the teams who, all of them, are the kind of teams when we talk about the top of the MAC, when we talk about the teams who come out of the MAC every year, we talk about our Ohios or our Miamis or our Northern Illinois or our Toledos, and they end up in these bowl games against these Mountain West teams. More often than not, these are coin flips. So every team I mentioned there, if I saw them on a bowl game schedule for my favorite MAC team, I might be worried. I would not be chalking that one up as a win. I would go, maybe. So we're talking about this entire conference has teams who can compete with the top of the MAC. That sounds like a competitive move for Northern Illinois. Now, I don't like losing the Huskies to the Mountain West, but I think it's hard to call this move a bad move on behalf of Northern Illinois. From their perspective, this is a great move, and I think the money piece must work out because they're making the move. And not only are they making this move, but they're selling it to their board of trustees as the $2 million entrance fee to the Mountain West is something that we think we can make back.
That's fair. No, that's fair. And, I certainly wish Northern Illinois the best. If I'm, and I say this at the risk of damning the Mid-American Conference, because I think it's pretty clear where I stand with my feelings towards the conference. But I think this is a move that should really be a wake-up call to the MAC, frankly, because, yes, bringing back UMass is great for the basketball side, for some of the Olympic sports sides. I think that's a great move. Football, it's not the best move, but again, you want everything. You got to take the good with the bad. I think the MAC's window was really hurt when Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee did not join. And I know there was that talk.
It did look like the MAC was making moves at that point, and then suddenly those moves weren't there. That certainly hurts.
So for me, I think if you're the MAC, right now you're fine getting back to 12. Next year will be a 13-team league. Next year, I think the year after that, you're fine being at 12. But you have to start looking at how you can be a player in this game. Your new media contract has to rock, or else you're going to lose Toledo, or else you're going to lose Miami and Ohio. Those are really, I think, the rest of your big brands. Not necessarily in that order, but I think those are the rest of your big brands in the conference that could go elsewhere. So I think if you're the MAC, you have to make this next media deal a good one. And as much as
it can't just be a good one, it has to be a great one.
Yeah.
Because I want to talk about that. When we talk about the Big Ten right now has the best media deal in terms of its member institutions. It gives out around $100 million every year to each member of the Big Ten. from media revenue.
Hmm.
And that's compared. Let's compare that to the Group of Five. The best Group of Five conference in terms of media revenue is the American, and they hand out $7 million to their member institutions. So, I mean that this is the kind of thing we can't just, as Group of Five fans, as MAC fans, we can't afford to be even in that $7 million range. It's got to be higher. And where that money comes from, who knows? But if you want to compete on the national level, I have more stats here. Again, this Dave Hale article is excellent. I recommend everyone go read it. Win percentage by non-power conference schools versus Power 4/5 because of the year difference thing. From 2006 to 2012, the win percentage is 0.240. So that's a 24% win from 2006 to 2012. 2014 to 2021. Any guesses?
10%.
0.189. That's a 19%. Since then, since 2021, this is 2022 through this year, that number has dropped again. We're at 14%. So that number has been almost cut in half since the 2006 to 2012 timeframe. And then if we cut that down even more, if we say we only the wins against Power 5 or Power 4 opponents is that finished 7-5 or better, if those are the only ones that count, then in 2021 we had 12 of those wins. In 2022, 5. In 2023, 7. In 2024, how many wins against programs who finished 7-5 or better? This is for the entire Group of Five. 1. One win. So this is a situation that's getting worse, not better. Group of Five programs are finding it harder and harder to compete against these Power 4 conference opponents, and that's the kind of thing that makes it hard for Group of Five conferences to stick around.
Does that? I'm just curious. Does that include postseason from this year, or is that all just regular season?
What those victories there?
Yeah,
that's including. I think this data was correct up until like Christmas Eve.
Okay, so I'm grasping at straws on that one, but Toledo did pull out a victory over Pitt. But again, it's postseason, bowl games, opt outs, whatever. So yeah. I didn't know how recent that data was. So
yeah, this is from a tweet that published on Christmas Eve. So okay. So yes, there is one additional victory in there. That's correct. Just the point being that the Group of Five is finding it harder and harder to compete. And the way that the Group of Five has always competed in the past is by developing players. And now we don't have an opportunity to do that. Now that there are some bright spots with this House settlement, maybe there's an opportunity to start signing players to multi-year contracts. Mm-hmm. Now that I can pay you directly, maybe I can sign you to a multi-year contract, which will keep you here long enough that with that development tool comes back into play. I'm not going to remember who proposed it, but I saw a proposal online by somebody suggesting NIL / if there is direct salary caps for players based on their tenure, not in the sport of college football, but their tenure at specific institutions. So his suggestion, and these obviously he was just using round numbers to make a suggestion, but saying players' first year at a school, their salary is capped at $100,000. And if you stay for 2 years, then it goes up to $200,000 and so on and so forth. So you can actually make more money staying at a school for a longer period of time. So I mean, I think there are things that we can consider, especially if we get creative in college football. But the Big Ten and the SEC made moves, and they positioned themselves as very powerful. I think it's going to be hard for the MAC to combat that, and I really don't know what we as Mid-American Conference fans can do to position the MAC to hold on to programs like Northern Illinois.
It's tough. I mean, there's a lot on the line, a lot of things with MAC, and really the Group of Five as a whole needs to look at financially, right? It's it's a much different world than it was 20 years ago, back in 2004, where we saw Miami, Ohio finish ranked 10 in the country, right? This is, I mean, they had one loss that year and they finished 10th in the country. So I mean, it's a much different world than it was back then. So yeah, I'm curious. Again, I don't hate Northern Illinois for making this move. I think it's very, very jarring, very shocking to the MAC. Northern Illinois has been a member for something like almost 40 years combined. So, it's a tough one to lose. And, I appreciate all the hard work that Northern Illinois fans have done to figure out how this makes sense, why it makes sense. I know several of those fans have pushed back on the midweek MAC games, and maybe there's some merit to that. I saw some fans kind of speak on, midweek MAC has, MACtion has killed our attendance. And perhaps that's been a contributing factor. I'm not going to pretend it hasn't, but it is worth noting how full stands were when Northern Illinois was playing midweek games in the Jordan Lynch era when they were competing for BCS bowl games. That being said, I don't disparage NIU fans. I get, this move. It makes sense. I don't like it. I don't have to like it, but I get why it makes sense. So we'll see. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to kind of think about. And yeah, I mean, good luck to NIU. I really hope that this works out for them. Wherever they put the rest of their teams, I hope that the football thing works out. And yeah, so, and frankly, Hawaii is a much better destination than Ypsilanti, Michigan. So again, I get that part too.
I don't know. I've vacationed in Ypsilanti, and it's very nice. I especially like their gorgeous water tower.
Well, Graham, I think that's going to wrap it up for us this week. Anything else you needed to get off your chest? Any thoughts, concerns, opinions, comments, suggestions?
Gosh, Mr. Thesaurus over here with all the synonyms. No, I want to thank all of the listeners for welcoming me in. I've gotten, even before being on the podcast, I've gotten a couple of follows on my socials from folks hoping to hear my MAC opinions. I hope that I don't disappoint you. And thanks for listening. Thanks for welcoming me in. And Alex, thanks to you for having me in as a co-host. I'm excited to be here and excited to continue to talk some MAC sports on this podcast.
Yeah, man, it's a natural progression. Felt like an incredibly obvious choice when I've received various messages and prompting, like, dude, make him a thing. Mostly because I think people just like you better. So I think you're going to start getting messages to get rid of me, so you do the thing full time. But we'll figure that out as that time comes. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following on all the socials. It's at the MSC Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. On YouTube, it's at MSC Podcast. Again, you can find the podcast anywhere podcasts are found: Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor, wherever you can, or you can just download the Varsity Network app and listen to the podcast there. Thank you guys so much for joining in, tuning in, listening to our ramblings about MACtion, and we'll see you next week.